No Man's Land by the confused camper. In the year 2125, Earth was overcrowded. The cities, choked with the weight of endless humanity, had become dangerous places. Crime rates soared, the air was thick with pollution, and the governing powers, desperate for a solution, turned to a radical measure, a new kind of punishment. Prisoners who had committed crimes deemed irreparable were no longer sent to the overcrowded jails or distant, harsh penal colonies. They were sent to a place much worse. They were sent to Etheris. Etheris was an uninhabited planet, shrouded in mystery and terror. No one knew exactly what waited there. It had been discovered by accident, a distant planet in a star system at the edge of known space. What the government didn't say, and what the prisoners didn't know, was that Etheris wasn't a barren wasteland. It was a place that had once known life, and now it was a prison. A prison built not just by the state, but by something far darker, older, and far more malevolent. When Marcus was sentenced to Etheris, he thought it was a death sentence. He had been part of a bank heist gone wrong, and though he hadn't killed anyone, he had made too many enemies. The law was merciless. He was given no trial, only the verdict: exile to Etheris. He boarded the transport ship along with other prisoners, all of them silent, their faces drawn and defeated. The ship felt sterile, cold, the air almost too thin to breathe, but the journey itself was quick. They arrived within hours, or so it seemed. When the ship landed on Etheris' surface, the atmosphere outside seemed to shimmer with an eerie, unnatural glow. The ground was an odd mix of black rock and scorched earth, broken by jagged, sharp peaks that loomed ominously in the distance. They were given only basic supplies: food, water, a small shelter, and told that the only way they could survive was to learn to adapt. There were no guards, no authorities. They were to be left to fend for themselves. There was only one rule: survive. Marcus quickly realized something was horribly wrong. The planet was alive. The air hummed with an energy he couldn't place, like an electric charge running just below the surface. The first night, he and the others huddled in their shelters, feeling the ground tremble beneath them, as though something was moving, something large and ancient, stirring from a deep slumber. By the third day, things began to fall apart. People started disappearing. It was subtle at first, just whispers in the dark, a shadow darting past the edge of the campfire, a footstep that couldn't be explained. But then, one morning, Marcus woke up to find one of the prisoners, a man named Jake, gone. No trace, not even a footprint in the dust. The others shrugged it off, attributing it to the unknown dangers of the planet, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was hunting them. That night, the ground quaked again, but this time it was different. The tremors didn't stop. They became rhythmic, like something was moving beneath the surface, growing closer. The prisoners could hear a low, guttural growl, distant but unmistakable, reverberating through the ground. Then came the screams. At first, it was just one, then another. Then the chorus began, shouted cries for help that quickly turned into horrible gurgles of terror. Marcus and the others ran toward the sound, but when they arrived, there was nothing. No body, no blood, just the footprints in the dust, vanishing into the night. And then Marcus saw it, a massive, hulking figure, rising from the ground. Its skin was slick and black, its eyes burning with an unnatural amber glow. It towered over the landscape, an ancient creature, perhaps the last of its kind. And behind it, following like shadows, were more figures, darker, leaner, but just as terrifying. The prisoners had never been alone. The planet was not a place for exile, it was a place for feeding, and the creatures that lived there fed on fear. As the days passed, the remaining prisoners began to unravel, Fear drove them mad. Some tried to escape, but the creatures were always there, watching from the shadows. Others turned on one another, driven by desperation and the primal need to survive. Marcus saw one man tear another apart, consumed by panic, as if the very air was poisoning their minds. It was only when Marcus stumbled across an ancient ruin, buried deep beneath the planet's surface, that he realized the truth. The planet had been a thriving civilization once, full of life and intelligence, but something had gone terribly wrong. The creatures that hunted them weren't just animals. They were the remnants of a species that had once ruled Etheirys, and now they were the wardens of the prisoners. The ruins held a warning carved into the stone walls. The exile is not a sentence of death. It is a sentence to feed the hunger of the forgotten. But Marcus didn't have time to process the message. He barely escaped the ruin before the ground beneath him shook violently, and the creatures, now fully awake, began to swarm the surface. They were no longer hunting one by one. They were coming for all of them. In the end, Marcus realized the truth. Etheirys wasn't a prison. It was a trap. The government hadn't sent them here to die. They had sent them here to become food for something far older than humanity. Etheirys didn't care if they lived or died. It was a place where the past fed on the present. As Marcus ran, he felt the ground beneath him crack open, and the shadows of the creatures loomed ever closer. There was no escape. There was no rescue. The prisoners weren't exiled to Etheirys. They were chosen. And now, they were part of the endless cycle, feeding the hunger of the forgotten. Thanks for watching, and please hit the like and subscribe buttons for more stories.